The official newspaper of the Borough of Belmar and the Asbury Park Press on November 21st, 2017, and notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building.
Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Who would just remain standing for our troops and their families? Okay, thank you. Okay, first thing on the agenda is the workshop discussion. Mark, Tom, you have anything in particular?
No.
Want to talk about?
No, the other thing I wanted to discuss was the Lake Como merger with the fire department a little bit. Just Colleen did a good job putting everything together. I really do believe that Lake Como is getting an excellent deal. They don't have to worry about trucks or anything like that anymore, but, you know, this is the times, and we're gonna have to look at some shared service options, so that's the only thing I wanted to bring up. I know that she did work hard, and I talked to her about it, and put everything together, so.
Colleen, last time I mentioned when we talked about, what about the rank and file of the firemen? How are they looking at this resolution to take over services for Lake Como?
As we communicated at the last meeting, we were not going to bring this to you until Lake Como had voted on it and until our membership had voted on it, and they overwhelmingly passed it.
Our
rank and file membership overwhelmingly passed.
From all three departments?
Yes.
Okay, was there any dissension or
I
any,
believe there was one no vote.
just one no
Just
vote?
one.
Okay.
So I think there's pretty much uniform acceptance of it.
Now there's other towns?
I'm sorry?
Are there other towns now too? Is it just Lake Como?
Just for Lake Como. A lot of interlocals for you today, so I apologize, last meeting of the year. The other interlocals are for fire prevention.
Okay.
So that's our fire marshal, where we've been approached by Spring Lake and Spring Lake Heights to provide fire prevention services to them.
Okay.
So those interlocals are on today for your consideration.
Very good.
Now, Ryan is our fire official, but he's not a fireman from Belmar, right?
He is a fire marshal for Belmar. He is a career fireman for Westfield, New Jersey.
Okay.
But he is not a Belmar.
So he's not a volunteer fireman in Belmar. I guess
I don't
it's
believe so, not at this time.
good to probably keep that separation, I would think.
Yeah, he's got a good relationship with the fire department. Obviously, they have to work together. And I have to say, your outgoing chief of fire, Chief Tucker Brendel, has been phenomenal through this year and through this interlocal process.
While we're on it, January 1st is the swearing in of the chiefs. So that's what, 10 a.m.?
10 a.m. at Union.
At Union. So, you know, they always like the
Thanks for
mayor and council to be there, so for that swearing in. So you put it on your calendar to be there for the swearing in of and Stevie Hines is going to be the new overall chief.
Stevie Hines, Steve will be coming up to be chief. And I think the next one is Brad Child.
Yeah.
And then the one after that, oh gosh.
I feel old now.
But it'll be a nice day if you can come out.
Okay. Petitions. Anyone in the audience have a petition you want to come forward with? Okay, seeing none. We'll go to the approval of the minutes.
I move that the minutes of the regular meeting held on December 5th, 2017 be approved as recorded and that a copy thereof be posted on the borough's website.
You have a second?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving down to reports of council. Mark, want to go with you?
I just want to wish everybody a healthy and happy new year for the upcoming year, and that's all I have.
Okay. Tom?
Thank you, Brian. I want to echo Mark's sentiments. Healthy New Year. I just wanted to share something I read in the paper this morning. The World Economic Forum has predicted that by 2050, the amount of plastic floating in the ocean will outweigh the amount of fish. Yes, that's what I said. That's what I read. That's what I'm saying. It's a really important issue. It's not a fringe issue. I think it's something we, living on the coast, are more aware of than some other communities might be. Definitely something we need to look at. That's all.
The town in Long Island, I read in the paper, that just banned all their plastic bags. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
We're looking for
We're
that.
sending them our plastic bags?
we should be, but yeah, they just banned it out in Long Island. It was a big town that did it.
Okay, very good. I just want to report that I want to thank the DPW for planting the 10 trees down 8th Avenue at Silver Lake. It's one of the projects that our Shade Tree Commission has been pushing to maintain our status as a Tree City, New Jersey's Tree City, USA. And we chose a great week last week to do it. The trees went in fine. Come spring, we'll start, pruning them, maintaining them, and it's something that I'm real pleased that the Shade Tree, with the cooperation of the DPW, was able to get done for 2017. So I wish Mike was here. Eddie, can you pass that out? Oh,
Yes.
no.
Ms. McGuire, Chief.
Okay,
Mr. McGuire's
John,
here.
thank you very much for doing that work. Kevin, Sal, and Joe did a great job.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, now we'll move to the public session. There's a public session on the resolution only on the agenda. We will continue to have the public session at the end of the meeting. Is there anyone that want to come forward and talk on the resolutions? Seeing none, I make a motion that we close the public session.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. All right, let's see, I make a motion to accept the consent agenda. All matters listed in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Borough Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately.
I'll second.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Montgomery?
Yes?
And Councilman Walsberg?
Yes. This is moving along very quickly.
Okay.
All right, next we come to the public session. Is there anybody out there in public that wants to come forward, state your name at the microphone and your address, and see what you have to say? Peter, your hand went up first, thank you.
If I leave, doesn't matter. Good morning.
Morning.
Peter Farrow, North Boulevard, Belmar. Just follow up on the one-way street of 19th Avenue, the designation. That's still on the ordinance, in the traffic ordinance that was passed earlier. When will that be amended to make 19th Avenue a one-way street going west?
If you don't mind, the mayor did ask for us to look at the traffic ordinance that was passed earlier in the year. There are some directions at the south end he wanted us to take another look at and address. Due to the closing of the calendar year and the starting of a new one, you need to do both readings of the ordinance within the same
calendar
governing
year,
year.
Right.
So the earliest we could introduce anything is in January, but it's still,
I just
still
want
on
to
the-
make sure it's,
still on the
it
list,
didn't
yes.
fade, very important, obviously.
But it is going in the direction you would like it to go right now, correct?
Yeah, they didn't take the one-way west signs down, there's still one-way west, even though the ordinance that you
Says
passed
it's gonna go.
says
Sure.
one-way
There's some
east.
cleanup that we need to do.
Right.
I just, just an abundance of caution on my part, because
Yeah.
when it was the one-way,
Right.
it was not a good thing. Thank you very much again for the consideration. Thank you, Colleen, for the explanation. And then a follow-through. Do we know when the 5-foot pipe will be complete? Do we have an end date for that, maybe?
Well, Memorial Day is the end date of the project. Right now, we anticipate, this is the Lake Como hazard mitigation pipe.
Right.
We anticipate works commencing in North End Boulevard, in about the second or third week in January. And the last phase of the project will be the Ocean Avenue work. That would happen in March. So
Okay.
that's actually like, construct from the lake, construct from the beach, and then connect it in the road.
People I've met at a recent neighborhood party asked when the closures of the road were going to take place.
You're gonna get at least 2 weeks' notice, so not yet.
Thank you very much. As always, Colleen's on her game.
Yeah, on that, Kyle, how is that work going? I mean,
Cold.
That's slow.
It's very cold work.
Right.
It's going very well. They are on schedule. It's been a really fascinating process for all of us in terms of constructing something this big out into the ocean. We've been working very tightly with DEP to make sure that all the standards are being met, both for the Army Corps of Engineers, the Coast Guard, dam safety. As you all know, there are so many regulatory pieces to this project. And all parties are playing nicely in the sandbox, so it's coming along.
do we know if there have been any injuries? I mean, that's difficult work for these guys.
It is, and they have very, very strict safety standards. We actually, in our construction meeting every 2 weeks, the first thing we start with is safety of the site. There are strict protocols in place in terms of at what point along that cofferdam life jackets must be worn, tethers must be in place. There is a safety boat that is out there on days when they're doing water work over the water. And so knock on wood, no injuries to date.
No injuries?
No injuries to date.
That's good. I mean, I can't imagine doing all that work in this amount of time and no one getting hurt, but that's great.
One of the things I found was fascinating, you told me that certain sections, the parts that are in the ocean, they can only work at low
Low
tide.
tide.
Yeah, so it's, it's one of the things that gives you an idea of the scope of the project and a sense of why, if it seems like it's taking a long time, that's why. I mean, you can only work on it during what conditions permit.
We do get a good number of inquiries from the public and our residents saying, they're not working. Wait 6 hours,
You're
they'll
right.
be out there.
Okay. Ma'am? Just state your name and address and fire away.
Quick question. Nancy Koenig, 303C. Brian, do you know what kind of trees were planted on 8th Avenue?
Yes, I do. They were Japanese lilac trees.
Thank you.
And it's
Flowering?
Yes, flowering, early part of summer, actually probably like 2 weeks in July. That's
Thank you.
when, so. And they'll only grow about 20 feet high, simply because they are underneath electric wires, and we didn't want trees that were going to, in the years when they mature, to have to be heavily pruned by JCP&L. So these trees will not grow tall enough to affect the electric wires above them.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and they're also salt air tolerant. So, and that's another factor with selecting the trees. The height of the tree, whether or not it can handle the salt air, and flowering to make it look nice. Any other questions? Yes?
Hi,
Just name and address, and then state your question.
Linda LaBeouf, 1719 River Road.
1719, okay.
In the back of my property, my neighbor has bamboo. I was in touch with the code enforcement, and they said it was locked in, that there's nothing they could do. And I just don't think, I printed out the code enforcement, and I don't think
It's an
that
ordinance
was,
we passed a couple of years ago.
I didn't think that was right, and I just want to know what the answer is, because I can't seem to get any answers from the township.
Well, you came to the right place because Councilman Brennan took that. That was one of your
Yeah.
lead.
I have a copy of the, I made a quick copy,
Thank
and
you.
I highlighted what Frank said,
It should be.
that it was,
He's not allowed to let it spread. That's the neat thing.
it's already spread.
Well, then-
That's almost impossible. We don't allow panda bears in town, right? That's just a joke. Bears.
That would take care
I
of it.
highlighted where the township said that 31-4.4, but he didn't quote the whole part of the definition.
Okay.
When I read it, to me, it said that it can't be on the property line.
Right.
It's not grandfathered, as the township stated, I don't think.
Is it growing into your property?
Yeah.
Then he's gonna do something.
Not only that, it's spread to the point where it's going up. Actually, my neighbor called code enforcement on me. They thought that I planted it. When code enforcement came, I said, no, it's the neighbor behind me. And then all of a sudden, nothing got done. I'm calling.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it's so invasive, right, the bamboo?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I called a company, they said they need to get a backhoe and a dumpster. I'm like,
That's exactly what
what?
they're gonna have to do. That's why you're getting pushback, is because the real remedy is gonna be expensive. But it's clear in the ordinance that it's the property owner's responsibility, whether you had it before the ordinance was passed or not. It's definitely supposed to be their responsibility to keep it from encroaching on your property.
But do they have to remove it? Because I called the company and they said, even if you remove it on your side and you put a barrier in and they don't remove it, they said in 5 years we'll be back.
Absolutely.
So,
Can I get your address?
sure, 1719 River Road.
I will certainly look into this.
Please.
Yeah.
But it's not grandfathered, is it not? It's not grandfathered, is it? Because when I read
Well,
this,
having the bamboo on his property, he doesn't have to remove it. It was
Okay.
pre-existing, but it says clearly, what the part you highlighted, says it is
Unless-
following, yes, it's subject to the following regulation. It's
Yes.
not permitted to exist within any buffer zone. And the buffer zone is obviously includes your property.
yeah.
So there's just no way, he's responsible, he's gonna have to do something, he's gonna have to remedy the situation.
property yet, ma'am? No, so it's still on your property. Okay.
No, because I thought it was his responsibility. I didn't want to do anything until after I found out what recourse do I have here? Because I didn't know what to do next.
This probably sounds like a time to go to our attorney. Greg, would you, who would be responsible for getting it off her property if it came from his?
The adjoining property owner who's violating the ordinance. I mean, so it's the same rules as trees. So the trunk of the tree is where it belongs, presumably the ball stem of the bamboo is on his property where he planted it. So he's responsible for it running underground, affecting pipes. I mean, the major reason I assume for this ordinance that you guys passed is you don't want it running into the right-of-ways while the utilities are, they don't run through it, screw up your.
Ma'am, if I could get your phone number, I will
Sure.
definitely give you a call after I look into it. And I don't want to misspeak, I have a feeling that this property is what generated the ordinance.
This
So,
bamboo
I
is
need
so
to
high.
check.
When you go back there and you look, it's like you're in Asia. It's unbelievable,
Okay.
actually.
Let
Yeah, I know where
let me
you're
look
talking
into
about.
a few things, ma'am, I will get back to
All
you,
that down at that end of the town.
and I'll provide counsel with an update,
Yeah, okay, good.
okay?
And then you take care, you send a notification to the property owner. I don't have to do anything, correct? And then you'll notify me.
We'll tell you exactly what we're going to do,
Okay.
okay?
So we're all set? Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Healthy,
coming out.
Happy New Year.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.
I'll get you guys an update when I
Yeah.
find out.
I'm surprised, is that the only
That's the first
property
time.
that, I
That's the
mean,
first time.
I've seen other bamboo in other properties, but it gets,
In my memory, it's the first triggering of this
Absolutely,
ordinance
definitely the first
since
one.
we've done it.
yeah. But there's other properties with it, just.
One would assume those property owners are being responsible. Yeah.
Greg, if I could ask you, a shade tree question. A neighbor yesterday called me about their neighbor's tree, which is growing up, and she wants to prune her neighbor's tree that is overhanging her property. Is she allowed to do that?
Yes, she can cut straight up the property line.
She can. Okay, here's the question. What if that pruning would kill the tree?
I mean, obviously, the best practice is to go talk to the neighbor about how you can prune it so it's not invading. So, long story short, the trunk is who owns the tree. You're responsible for the roots and the branches to the extent they encroach on someone else's property. The property owner who's being overhung, for lack of a better term, can cut straight up the property line. If it kills the tree, it kills the tree. Then, you're technically not allowed to encroach across the area of someone else's property line. I mean, the best practice would be to go over and talk to the people about how you can prune it so that it doesn't kill the tree.
It happens to be her sister-in-law,
Well, that makes it maybe easier.
which is why it's a problem.
Okay. I mean, as a property owner, she has the right to cut straight up the property line.
Straight up the property line, even though it would severe. Now, what if
Still your
she,
property.
here's another, she cuts it, kills a tree, now the tree falls onto the
Oh, I
house.
feel like I'm taking the bar exam again. That would be a tough call. I mean, technically, the person whose property upon which the tree sits is responsible for keeping it in condition to not fall. But given that the independent action by the adjoining property owner would be the cause of the tree becoming diseased? I don't know, that'd be an interesting legal question. I'm not sure there is a case on that.
So,
I don't think it would.
Now, if the tree died and it was clearly gonna fall and it was on someone's property, then they're responsible for it. Smashes someone's fence, the homeowner whose tree, upon whose property the tree grows from is responsible for that kind of damage. You call their insurance company and stuff. But it's an interesting question if someone else killed the tree on your property and then it fell. I'm not sure there's a case of, I think there's a case of first impression in New Jersey, guys.
okay, I told her I'd call her back today after I spoke to you, and I'll tell her to talk to her brother.
Yeah, I mean, branches and roots are the same thing under the law. You know, if your roots are growing into someone's storm drain, someone's swimming pool, or something on adjoining property, the property owner also has the right to dig right at the property line and kill all your roots. You know, just for example, absent the running bamboo ordinance, the lady who's just at the microphone would have the right to dig down and kill every root that's coming across her property line from the bamboo.
Begin the next week.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else that wishes to ask us a question? If not, wish everybody a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Mark, Tom, everyone. I make a motion to close the meeting. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.